Hello, awesome people. This is Conan Horas back with another episode of Planet Quest. Once again, with Bob Kerman, our intrepid and always scared Bob Kerman, the scientist. Anyway, he kissed his wife goodbye this morning. Said, "I'm going on to the Widowmaker Mark II. This has fewer solid rocket boosters and a lot more control, though less thrust overall for the first stages. As you can see, the middle engine, the main, secondary ascent stage, is not ignited currently. Now, since Bob is not a pilot, he cannot control the ship very well, and I'm fighting against that constantly through the ascent. Now, I recorded this mission earlier, but some odd things happened with the audio, and so I'm forced to record it again. So he's already done his scientific duty. He's just doing this again. As you can see, he survived, so everything's safe. Or is it? Every time we fly, it's another opportunity for things to go awry. Don't tell his wife that, though. She's really quite concerned about him. It was quite moving, the letter that she wrote to the space agency asking them that he never fly again, but remain on the science docket and do nothing else. But, you know, we threw him in a capsule anyway. So anyway, as he was doing in the previous episode with the Widowmaker Mark I, his mission was to go above the Van Allen belts and make sure that Kerbals can survive out there. Now, those of you who don't know, the Van Allen belts were discovered by Van Allen. Of course, right? Right, separation looks good. I love it when they collide. Okay, so yeah, after Sputnik was launched, the Americans were getting very nervous. You know, Sputnik was a hollowed-out nuclear missile head that they put a transmitter into and sent it into space with a couple of batteries, and everybody could listen to it with their radios, and it instilled all kinds of fear in the American people, and for good reason. The Russians were basically flexing their muscles, saying, hey, we can put a missile in space and drop it on you at any time we want. So the Americans were getting a little bit worried, and they wanted to, retaliate, a show of muscle flexing as well. So they sent up the Explorer 1 with Van Allen and his team in charge of that mission. And it had some Geiger counters on it that they sent up. And they would send it up as high as they possibly could. And so the data it was sending back from the Geiger counter was going up and going up and going up, and then it would drop immediately down to zero. And then it would get into this high number again and keep going up and keep going up and keep going up, and then drop to zero a second time. And then came back to a high number. They were scratching their heads for a while, trying to figure out what was going on. Well, any self-respecting computer scientist might tell you, well, actually what was probably happening is they were getting an overflow error. And that is indeed what was happening. The Geiger counter was getting such a large number and feeding it into the computer that the computer, which was then transmitting the data back, did not know what to do with it. So it was an overflow error. And that the programmers or the designers of the computer decided that error should return a value of 0, so that the computer could continue its further calculations instead of seizing up and saying, I've encountered something that I can't handle, and then just giving up, which unfortunately is something that computers might do, and do. Do. Very mature, I know. Anyway, it looks like we are well above the Van Allen belts at this point. No. Let's go a little bit higher. Why not? And that is the main orbit booster all spent. Dump that. And this is our final stage. Only has 400 meters per second of delta V available to it. Now, Valentina Kerman was not able to get into orbit. As you remember, she just barely was not high enough. Her periapsis just was not high enough, and because of a lack of fuel. Bob Kerman is thinking, well, I've got this really high apoapsis, and I can just, fire my engines just a small amount, get above the atmosphere, which 80 kilometers would do, and still be able to return to Kerman safely. So that's what he's going to try to do. He's going to line up his maneuver node right here, and the magical time warp, right? Oh, we love the magical time warp. And again, I'm not bothering with gathering the science because I have already done this. Bob has already done this. This is just a redoing of the mission so that it can be captured on camera with a nice voiceover and sound effects and so forth. Anyway, time to make this burn. And the hardest part really is just keeping an eye on the maneuver node. Although a maneuver node really is not necessary for this maneuver. There we go. His apoapsis is at 83 kilometers, very much in orbit. So just to show off, he's going to go one go over of the orbit, and then do a termination burn. I don't remember what it's called. A deorbit burn. There we go. A deorbit burn when he gets back up to apoapsis. Here we go. And I'm really watching his electric charge closely. If he runs out of electric charge, he will die. So we got to be careful about all of his life support. He's accruing a lot of carbon dioxide as well. I don't want him to have air intoxication. Here we go. Come on. Nope, wrong way. We're going prograde, not retrograde. Hold on. Maybe a maneuver node is required. Oh dear, that would be awful if he was stranded in space with less than a day of electric charge remaining. Okay, that should do it just right. 31 kilometers on the periapsis I think that will be a safe landing. So let's just do that. Da, 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 da. Or, I mean, no, this isn't the beginning of a movie, right? Anyway, the descent, the aero capture and descent is nothing extraordinary. So we'll just speed through this. No reason to. Debriefing. Bob tells them everything about what he learned when going past the Van Allen belts. Indeed, a Kerbal will survive going past the Van Allen belts. And, he also talked about his theories of aliens up in the heavens. And, nobody really believes him. But that's a story for another day. Here is Jebediah again, once more on the launch pad. Yes, he is no longer grounded from his stunt that he pulled in the first episode. Now he is ready to make a very pioneering mission happen. He is in the Courage Mark I, a vessel designed specifically to go to the moon. Perhaps not to land on the moon, but to go there. And it's having a little bit of trouble at the start getting into, off the launch pad and into the air, but it should have enough fuel overall to get out of the atmosphere and into orbit. Just from this stage, these three rockets, or these three engines, should be supplied with enough fuel to get Jebediah Kerman and the Courage Mark I into orbit. Now this does not have any solar panels, so he's going to have to rely on all the electric charge that is available in the vessel. Luckily, the engines, or rather these engines, produce electric charge while they are firing. But once we ditch this middle stage, all that is gone. The upper stage rocket does not produce any electric charge. So he's going to be relying entirely on batteries. He has 7 days worth, which hopefully is enough. But, I mean, we'll see. It should be about 7 days to get to and come back from the moon. Not to land on it or anything, but to just fly by, not do any extraneous activities like trying to match maneuver nodes or anything like that. Just very basic, very simple, get there and get back type of mission. Anyway, he's still very excited to be the first Kerbal to visit the moon, with an asterisk, Visit the moon, asterisk. Not really. Who knows? Maybe Jebediah Kerman will be the Kerman to first step foot on the moon. Or he'll die in this mission. Who knows? Luckily, he's not married, so he doesn't have a wife who is worrying that much about whether or not he survives. But he sure does have parents who are they are less than happy about his behavior, both growing up and in episode 1. Anyway, this ascent is really nothing spectacular, just really a very, I guess, a slow ascent, but a steady one. One that is very likely to be pulled off. Again, this is untested technology. This vessel has not been flown before. So this is 100% completely new. Anyway, while we're waiting for that, both of these service bays are jam-packed with batteries. As you know, batteries are heavy, so that means we're pumping up, we're requiring a lot more fuel than we would like, which makes this vessel heavier, and that's why we had so much trouble getting off of the launch pad. Anyway, I'm just going to time warp for you until we get into orbit. Alright, well, we ran out of fuel in the ascent stage, but we have plenty of fuel in this upper stage. 2,000 meters per second of delta V, in fact, in this upper stage. I think more than enough to get into orbit and then perform a maneuver to to meet the moon and to get back to Kerman. Safe and sound and ready to... I don't know, what does Jebediah do on the weekends? Play Rummikub? We'll go with that. Anyway, here we are in orbit. It's not a perfectly circular orbit, but that is not important. What is important is that the orbit is stable and that he'll be able to get to the moon from here. Anyway, we're going to add a maneuver node and calculate or rather have the computer calculate for us just how much delta V is going to require. Now we're going to do a fairly close to a free return trajectory. Now, to perform a free return trajectory, what you want to do is go way above the orbit of the moon, or the orbiting body that you're visiting, and then come back down with such velocity that its gravity hardly affects your orbit at all. And I am not getting a very good free return trajectory. Come on. Alright, you know what? I played with my maneuver node and I just kept playing with it and trying to get something that looked good. But ultimately, I decided, you know what, this is more trouble than it's worth. This is a first mission to the moon. Let's just try to have fun right now, instead of playing around with a maneuver node and being all serious. So I've decided to go for this maneuver node. It's going to take 8 meters per second of delta V, which is not going to eat up even half of the delta V that is stored in this upper stage. Now, another thing to note is that getting to the apoapsis will take 2 days. That's assuming that we don't change the orbit until then. So 2 days to get to the apoapsis, and from here the periapsis is in 3 days. We have 7 days. Let me just double check. Uh-oh. 1 day? 1 day remaining? Uh-oh. Maybe that's 1 day real time, and that, which translates to somewhere around 5 days in game time. I hope. Hold on, I'm going to do some calculations. I'll be right back. Okay, I crunched the numbers, did some math. So what I looked at was this consumption rate, which is 0.04 per second. Multiplied it by the number of seconds in a minute, and then a number of minutes in an hour, etc., etc. Arrived at a good number. This is showing me that, yeah, I have 7 days worth of electric charge, and that's 7 game days. It translates to about 1.5 real days. So I don't know what that program was telling me, why it was telling me that, but it was obviously false. Anyway, time to make this happen. We have the maneuver node, we have the maneuver all lined up. It's ready to go. So, an interesting thing that happened today while I was driving around town, just a little story to tide you over while we try to very slowly get this orbit up to an insertion. So yeah, I was driving around and I saw that somebody I went to grade school, junior high, and high school with, somebody that was a mainstay of my childhood, is now running for commissioner. And that's all kinds of exciting, It's not every day that you see somebody that was all throughout your childhood grow up to the point where they are running for commissioner. So, more power to him. I think that's awesome. His billboards are everywhere. They are just littering my city. And, that's a good thing. I mean, I like this guy, And I like the artwork on his billboard. I like everything about him. I don't know that much about what being a commissioner is, other than a lot of paperwork and being, the representative of the police force for the community, an elected official who is more or less just a liaison. That's how I understand it. I don't really know. Maybe you can correct me. If you can, please put it in the comments below. It's always good to learn something new, right? Anyway, that's us. And you'll notice that this maneuver, or this current trajectory, will land us face first into the moon. And that's okay. We're going to change the orbit, again, up here, just to pull back a little bit. Maybe that's not what I wanted to do. Maybe I want to increase. Yeah, I don't want to pull back like that. I want to fire forward. Yeah, that's looking much better, I think. It keeps popping in and out saying, oh no, this is going to be your orbit, and it doesn't seem to be quite sure what's going on. I'm not sure what's going on, really. That looks nice. Oh no, that's way too high. I want to get really close to the moon without crashing into it and collect some near moon science. That looks about right. So that's what we'll go with. And yeah, I think we'll just warp until we get there. Again with the the movie music. Here we go. Maneuver node is ready. Now, when you're like this, when you're far away from your target, and the maneuver node is really small, it doesn't really matter that much if you're spot on with your time. I'm about 20 minutes away. That's maybe a bit much. 13 minutes away. That's fine. We'll perform this maneuver 12 minutes off of when it should be performed. Here we go. And I think it'll be just fine. I'm not going to chase the maneuver node or anything. Here we go. There. And it's saying it will be 19 kilometers above the surface. Fantastic. So we'll just insert into the sphere of influence. Here we go. It's time for Jebediah Kerman to do some science. Some sciencey things. He is officially the first Kerbal above or to visit the moon. Asterisk. So we'll do a crew report and keep that. We'll EVA. Take the crew report. Do an EVA report. And reboard. Then observe the mystery goo of all mysteries. Keep that. Find out what the temperature is in outer space, which is weird because you're trying to measure nothing. There's nothing to measure the temperature of. Yeah, that goes into physics. Essentially, when you're taking the temperature of something, you're measuring the transfer of heat from one medium to another. Now, what that means is, it's better to explain it this way. The heat is just the energy of molecules in an object. So heat transfer is just the transfer of energy or momentum from the molecules of one object to the molecules of another object. When you're taking a measurement with a thermometer, that thermometer is an object. And so it's taking the heat transfer is going from the air around it or whatever it's touching, your souffle, whatever. That energy of the energy of the molecules of the object that you are measuring with the thermometer is being transferred into the thermometer itself until they reach an equilibrium. They're both the same temperature. At which point there's no change. Are we near? Yes, near the moon. Cool, keep that. So when you're in outer space, there's nothing to take the temperature of. And so it just doesn't make sense to try to take the temperature of space. Anyway, enough of that. Very philosophical, I know. Take a report over the Highlands. Keep that. Take all the data that we have now and restore it. We have to do that because of the way that science works in this game. It's weird. I don't necessarily like it, but what you gonna do? Write it to developers and complain in some really strangely worded letter that they never respond to, even though it's been like 6 weeks, guys? But, I mean, what can you do? Anyway, Bob is going, Jebediah is going to reboard. This has been his visit to the moon. Now it's just about getting back home safely, and he wants to conserve as much fuel as he can, even though he has plenty of it. And he's going to perform his maneuver here while still in the sphere of influence of the moon. Here we go. He has that orbit set up. It'll bring him down to 20 kilometers above the surface, above water level on Kerman, and this maneuver is only going to cost him about 500 meters per second of delta V. So we'll just perform that burn and get out of here. Time to leave this moon, this rock that always remains in orbit around Kerman. Now, he is performing this burn well in advance, but, that's how Jebediah is. He just is always impatient, always trying to get things done and be the first, and, that's what got him in trouble in the first place, but I don't think that ground control is going to be that upset with the things that he's been doing on this mission. Just a couple of early burns, that's all, and he's getting back home safely. I don't think there's going to be any problems. Anyway, that is our burn right there. Not exactly the same as the maneuver. He's not going to crash into the moon, and we'll just warp to atmospheric entry, where we will then watch him descend, maybe to his fiery doom. But yes, he has plenty of electric charge remaining. He is doing very well. I was really concerned about those numbers. I'm glad that it worked out. Anyway, it's about time that he can start relying on electric charge just in the capsule. So he's going to start shedding, or start opening all this up. And he's going to shed all the batteries and other life support that kept him alive through this mission, and rely now on only the life support inherent to the capsule. And that separation will take place now. And then he's going to aim the heat shield into the oncoming atmosphere, or rather the atmosphere that is receiving the oncoming capsule. And we'll just speed up time because we're impatient, just like Jebediah. And watch that capsule burn. Oh man. Atmospheric re-entry is very, very dangerous, as anybody who knows about the Challenger disaster knows. Those who don't know about the Challenger disaster, be very, very, very careful when you do space travel. If you ever go into space and you have a piece of foam hit the wing of whatever airplane-looking capsule that you're in, be concerned. Request that you return home back to Earth in some other capsule, some other savior mission. So yes, the Challenger explosion was a horrible, horrible tragedy that could have been prevented, but ultimately everybody thought that it was acceptable risk, except a couple of people who were being concerned, but ultimately those concerns were deemed to be of little value, that the mission could still go, or not of little value, but rather that they were low risk, or low enough risk that the mission could continue. What ultimately caused the problem was an O-ring, of all things. An O-ring that was in one of the boosters was not designed for the temperatures that the booster was experiencing on the launch pad in January. So because it was in January, it was very cold, and it caused the ring to shrink just enough that it became dangerous. And that allowed some of the insulation, some of the foam, to fall during launch, and it hit the wing of and I forget what it's called. Oh man, it's not a capsule. It's something else. Anyway, it hit the wing of this vehicle, and that chipped off a little piece of the wing. Very small, almost, something that you could just kind of, whatever. Well, when it came time for re-entry, that, whatever, split wide open because of all the heat and all the pressure that was coming up against it. And it destroyed it. I think it was a crew of 6 people, 6 individuals, were all killed because an O-ring shrank too much on the launch pad in January. That was all from memory. I was not reading a script. How about that? I should probably write scripts from now on and read them so I'm not humming and hawing as I'm trying to tell a story. I feel sorry for all of you viewers who had to listen to all of that. Anyway, we're going to... Jebediah has his parachutes out, everything is fine, we're just going to skip to the landing. Alright, we gathered all kinds of science from that mission, resulting in a total of 189 science. And Jebediah leveled up. Congratulations, Jebediah! What can you do now that you have leveled up? You can... you can hold your prograde and retrograde vectors. Nice, well done. Anyway, time to unlock some stages in our science. And, I do like to just go bit by bit, but it's time to start building up, a fleet of satellites that can do some communications, because it's probably a good idea to send a satellite to land on the moon before sending an actual living Kerbal to the moon. So let's see what we can unlock here. Yes, photovoltaic panels would be very good. Some solar panels would be very nice and very useful for that. We also need some long-distance communications. Very good. Better batteries. Yes, this is what we want. Very good. 90 science remaining. Flight control will allow us to have this communication device, this antenna that is always on, so we'll unlock that as well. And still have 54 science remaining. Might as well unlock some aviation science so we can get some airplanes going. Anyway, next episode we'll see what we can do with autonomous flight. Until then, this is Conan Horrors. Have fun.